This video provides a summary of the rules of Cretaceous Creek, the cooperative and solo variant of the game Fossil Canyon. In Cretaceous Creek, 1 to 4 paleontologists attempt to excavate 6 different skeletons from a late Cretaceous dig site before a worsening storm destroys the fossils. Recommended age 8 and up, playtime about 30 minutes. Cretaceous Creek uses a subset of the Fossil Canyon components. You will use the deck of 18 event cards, 30 fossil cards including the Edmontosaurus skin impression and 29 skeletal fossils, 4 Tyrannosaurus, 3 Triceratops, 6 Ankylosaurus, 6 Quetzalcoatlus, 6 Parasaurolophus, and 4 Pachycephalosaurus. A set of 15 of any of the other fossil cards, 1 museum token for each player, the Cretaceous Creek player reference cards, the storm phase card and an unused player token to track the storm, and 1 museum puzzle piece and 1 skeleton scoring piece for each of Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, Parasaurolophus, and Pachycephalosaurus. Your goal is to build a complete skeleton of each before the dig site is flooded. First, we create the 3x5 dig site movement grid using the 15 cards as shown. Leave some space between each row. The rows are labeled A through C and the columns are labeled 1 through 5, so the grid space indicated is called C2. These cards always remain face down and stationary throughout the game. Their only purpose is to show the movement grid. If you have the map from the Kickstarter version of the game, or a rubber-backed playmat from our website, you can use those instead and skip this step. Shuffle the 30 fossil cards and place 1 fossil card face down on each grid space, perpendicular to the grid space card. This is the bottom layer of fossils. If you are playing at the beginner or intermediate level, as recommended for your first game, put 1 fossil card face up at each grid space. This is the top layer of fossils. If you are playing at the advanced or expert levels, some of the top layer fossils will be face down, as described in the rulebook. Now, each player takes their player reference card and places their token at one of the corner grid spaces, A1, A5, C1, or C5. These corner spaces are called campsites. Each paleontologist begins the game at a campsite. Completed skeletons can be delivered to the museum at any campsite, and players can leave the dig site from any campsite. Now use an extra player token in the storm phase card to set the storm phase to 1, Rainstorm. Shuffle the event deck and place 4 cards in a stack face down to the right of the storm phase card. This stack is the erosion deck. Finally, if you are playing at the beginner level, each player is offered the opportunity to excavate the top fossil at their campsite. If they decide to do so, the fossil is placed in their storage, next to their reference card. During the game, a grid space may have no fossils, as shown here, 1 fossil, or 2 fossils. If there are 2 fossils, the bottom fossil is always face down. The top fossil could be face up or face down. A face down fossil is called buried. A face up fossil is partially excavated and called exposed. A face-up but rotated fossil is partially excavated but in danger of being destroyed by erosion. We call such a fossil endangered. During the game, erosion events may change the state of the top fossil. If the top fossil is buried, an erosion event causes the fossil to be endangered. The fossil is turned face up and rotated. If the top fossil is exposed, erosion causes it to become endangered. If the top fossil is endangered, then a second erosion event will cause it to be destroyed. The fossil is removed from the game. A paleontologist can also change the state of the fossil. If the fossil is buried, a paleontologist may expose it using 2 action points. If the fossil is endangered, a paleontologist may protect it using 2 action points, changing it to an exposed state. If the fossil is exposed or endangered, a paleontologist may excavate it and add it to their storage for 3 action points. A paleontologist can carry no more than 4 fossils. Each turn consists of paleontologist actions followed by dig site erosion. A paleontologist has a total of 4 action points to use on their turn. For 0 action points, you can discard a fossil in storage. For 1 action point, you can move to an adjacent space. An adjacent space is defined as north, south, east, or west, not diagonal. For 2 action points, you can expose a buried fossil on your space or an adjacent space, protect an endangered fossil on your space or an adjacent space, or give a fossil to or get a fossil from another paleontologist on your space or an adjacent space. For 3 action points, you can excavate a fossil on your space or an adjacent space and add it to your storage. You cannot have more than 4 fossils in your storage. For example, on your turn, you could move 4 spaces, you could protect 1 fossil and expose another, or you could move 1 space and excavate a fossil. If a paleontologist is on a campsite and has all the fossils needed to complete a skeleton, like the 3 different Quetzalcoatlus fossils, the fossils are removed from storage and the skeleton is added to the museum. This paleontologist still has 1 other fossil in storage. After a paleontologist actions, dig site erosion occurs. If there are cards left in the erosion deck, as shown here, draw a number of cards equal to the storm phase, which is 1 at the beginning of the game. Place this card face up and to the right of the other event cards. The bottom of the card indicates that erosion occurs at B4. The top fossil at this grid space erodes, becoming endangered if it was buried or exposed, and being destroyed if it was already endangered. If there is no fossil at the grid space, erosion has no effect in storm phases 1, 2, or 3. This completes the dig site erosion for this turn, and play proceeds to the next player for the next turn. After the next player's actions, erosion occurs at A5. On the next turn, the card says no erosion occurs. On the next turn, erosion occurs at C1. Now there are no cards left in the erosion deck, so on the next turn, erosion occurs at B4, as indicated by the leftmost face-up card. Notice that it is possible to predict the next few erosion events, so you should use this information in planning your moves. On the next turn, erosion occurs at A5. On the next turn, there is no erosion. On the next turn, erosion occurs at C1. Now there are no event cards left on the table, so the storm phase is increased by 1, all 18 event cards are shuffled, and 8 are placed next to the storm phase card as the erosion deck for storm phase 2. For storm phase 3 there would be 12 cards, and for storm phase 4 there would be 16 cards. On the next turn, draw 2 cards to determine the erosion. Place the cards in a staggered stack so both erosion events are visible. Erosion occurs at B5 and C5. On the next turn, the 2 cards indicate no erosion and erosion at A3. After 2 more turns, the erosion deck will be empty and erosion events will be determined by the leftmost stack of face-up cards. Erosion continues in this way with 2 erosion cards each turn in Storm Phase 2, 3 erosion cards each turn in Storm Phase 3, and 4 erosion cards each turn in Storm Phase 4. During Storm Phase 4, if erosion occurs at a grid space with no fossils, the grid space becomes flooded. This is indicated by placing the event card on the grid space. A flooded grid space cannot be occupied by a paleontologist carrying fossils. If a paleontologist carrying fossils is on a flooded space, they can either discard their fossils or move. They may move to any non-flooded adjacent space. If none is available, they may move to any non-flooded diagonal space. If none is available, they must discard their fossils. All flooding events happen simultaneously. Don't flood one space, allow paleontologists to move, and then flood another space. Notice that a flooded grid space means that the stack of face-up cards will have fewer than 4 cards. If 4 grid spaces flood in a single turn, no face-up stack is generated that turn. If any paleontologist has the valuable Edmontosaurus fossil in storage, they may trade it for emergency sandbagging during Storm Phase 4. After seeing the erosion events that will occur, that player may discard the Edmontosaurus fossil in exchange for removing the 4 event cards from the game. No erosion occurs on that turn. All players win when all 6 skeleton scoring pieces are added to the museum and each paleontologist has reached a campsite for evacuation. All players lose if the storm phase token advances to dig site flooded, or if it becomes clear that the objective cannot be reached. There are 2 complete skeletons of Ankylosaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, Parasaurolophus, and Pachycephalosaurus in the dig site, but there is only 1 Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops. So if any Tyrannosaurus or Triceratops fossil is destroyed, the game is lost. To play solo with a single paleontologist, increase your storage capacity to 6 fossils, eliminate the give and get action, and allow a skeleton to be delivered to the museum from any grid space, not just the corner campsites. Once you've succeeded at the beginner level, try the intermediate, advanced, or expert levels.